week 5, Thursday and Friday, we'll be getting a little farther in Fahrenheit 451. So just keep in mind that the PDF, I'll just keep it in the same place, is under week 5, Monday. So you will need to access that. Let it load for a sec. And we left off in the PDF on page 6. Yeah. On page 6, the bit about the machine. So, before we get started on things for today, I have a few more television statistics to share with you. So these statistics all relate to family life. So the percentage of households in America that possess at least one television, 99. That's a pretty crazy number. Number of TV sets in the average U.S. household, 2.24. So I always find it interesting to kind of poll the class and ask how many people do have, more than 2 or 3 televisions in a house, and that's usually a decent amount of folks. Percentage of U.S. homes with 3 or more TV sets, 66. Percentage of Americans that regularly watch television while eating dinner, 66. Number of hours of TV watched annually by Americans, 250 billion. No wonder the entertainment industry is so lucrative. And percentage of Americans who pay for cable TV, 56. Now, in spite of the fact that obviously most people have a TV, not everyone is paying for cable TV. And I think we can probably blame the internet and streaming services for that. So I would expect that number to continue falling. Number of videos rented daily in the US, 6 million. Number of public library items checked out daily, 3 million. And honestly, I'm surprised it's that many. Percentage of Americans who say they watch too much TV, that would be 49%. So most folks, well, almost most folks, seem to think that TV perhaps takes up too much of their life. So let's get back to the crazy world of Fahrenheit 451, and we'll see how TV presents itself in this society. But first, we have to ensure the livelihood of one of our characters. So Montag's wife is in a bad place right now. Apparently, she has consumed 30 sleeping pills, and Montag has called the hospital to try to get some help for her because, that's not a thing you can just shake off. So normally, when someone overdoses, they would be taken to the emergency room and they would pump their stomach. That's kind of standard procedure to get all the toxins out of your body. So Montag's world, a little bit different. So let's see what kind of medical care Mildred receives in this scene. They had this machine. They had 2 machines, really. One of them slid down into your stomach like a black cobra down an echoing well, looking for all the old water and the old time gathered there. It drank up the green matter that flowed to the top in a slow boil. Did it drink of the darkness? Did it suck out all the poisons accumulated with the years? It fed in silence with an occasional sound of inner suffocation and blind searching. It had an eye. The impersonal operator of the machine could, by wearing a special optical helmet, gaze into the soul of the person whom he was pumping out. What did the eye see? He did not say. He saw but did not see what the eye saw. The entire operation was not unlike the digging of a trench in one's yard. The woman on the bed was no more than a hard stratum of marble they had reached. Go on anyway. Shove the bore down. Slush up the emptiness, if such a thing could be brought out in the throb of the suction snake. The operator stood smoking a cigarette. The other machine was working too. The other machine was operated by an equally impersonal fellow in non-stainable reddish-brown overalls. This machine pumped all of the blood from the body and replaced it with fresh blood and serum. Gotta clean 'em out both ways, said the operator, standing over the silent woman. No use getting the stomach if you don't clean the blood. Leave the stuff in the blood, and the blood hits the brain like a mallet. Bang! Couple of thousand times, and the brain just gives up, just quits. Stop it, said Montag. I was just saying, said the operator. Are you done? Said Montag. They shut the machines up tight. We're done. His anger did not even touch them. They stood with cigarette smoke curling around their noses and into their eyes without making them blink or squint. That's $50. First, why don't you tell me if she'll be all right? Sure, she'll be okay. We got all the mean stuff right in our suitcase here. Can't get at her now. As I said, you take out the old and put in the new and you're okay. Neither of you is an MD. Why didn't they send an MD from emergency? Hell. The operator's cigarette moved on his lips. We get these cases 9 or 10 a night. Got so many, starting a few years ago, we had the special machines built. With the optical lens, of course, that was new. The rest is ancient. You don't need an MD case like this. All you need is two handymen. Clean up a problem in half an hour. Look, he started for the door. We gotta go. Just had another call on the old ear thimble, 10 blocks from here. Someone else just jumped off the cap of a pillbox. Call if you need us again. Keep her quiet. We got a contraceptive in her. She'll wake up hungry. So long. And the men with the cigarettes in their straight-lined mouths, the men with the eyes of puff-adders, took up their load of machine and tube, their case of liquid melancholy, and the slow dark sludge of nameless stuff, and strolled out the door. Montag sank down into a chair and looked at this woman. Her eyes were closed now, gently, and he put out his hand to feel the warmness of breath on his palm. Mildred, he said at last. There are too many of us, he thought. There are billions of us, and that's too many. Nobody knows anyone. Strangers come and violate you. Strangers come and cut your heart out. Strangers come and take your blood. Good God, who were those men? I never saw them before in my life. Half an hour passed. The bloodstream in this woman was new, and it seemed to have done a new thing to her. Her cheeks were very pink, and her lips were very fresh and full of color, and they looked soft and relaxed. Someone else's blood there. If only someone else's flesh and brain and memory. If only they could have taken her mind along to the dry cleaners and emptied the pockets and steamed and cleansed it and reblocked it and brought it back in the morning. If only. He got up and put back the curtains and opened the windows wide to let the night air in. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. Was it only an hour ago? Clarice McClellan in the street, and him coming in the dark room, and his foot kicking the little crystal bottle? Only an hour, but the world had melted down and sprung up in a new and colorless form. Laughter blew across the moon-colored lawn from the house of Clarice, and her father and mother, and the uncle who smiled so quietly and so earnestly. Above all, their laughter was relaxed and hearty and not forced in any way, coming from the house that was so brightly lit this late at night, while all the other houses were kept to themselves in darkness. Montag heard the voices talking, 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 giving, talking, weaving, reweaving their hypnotic web. Montag moved out through the French windows and crossed the lawn, without even thinking of it. He stood outside the talking house in the shadows, thinking he might even tap on their door and whisper, "Let me come in. I won't say anything. I just want to listen. What is it you're saying?" But instead, he stood there, very cold, his face a mask of ice, listening to a man's voice, the uncle, moving along at an easy pace. Well, after all, this is the age of the disposable tissue. Blow your nose on a person, wad them, flush them away, reach for another, blow, wad, flush. Everyone is using everyone else's coattails. How are you supposed to root for the home team when you don't even have a program or know the names? For that matter, what colored jerseys are they wearing as they trot out onto the field? Montag moved back to his own house, left the window wide, checked Mildred, tucked the covers about her carefully, then lay down, with the moonlight on his cheekbones and on the frowning ridges in his brow, with the moonlight distilled in each eye to form a silver cataract there. One drop of rain, Clarice. Another drop, Mildred. A third, the uncle. A fourth, the fire tonight. 1, Clarice. 2, Mildred. 3, uncle. 4, fire. 1, Mildred. 2, Clarice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Clarice, Mildred, uncle, fire, sleeping tablets, men, disposable tissue, coattails, blow, wad, flush. Clarice, Mildred, uncle, fire, tablets, tissues, blow, wad, flush. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Rain, the storm, the uncle laughing, thunder falling downstairs, the whole world pouring down, the fire gushing up in a volcano, all rushing on down around in a spouting roar and rivering stream toward morning. I don't know anything anymore, he said, and let a sleep lozenge dissolve on his tongue. Okay, so pause there for a sec to examine poor Montag and his night. I just realized I completely forgot to let you know where we're stopping today. Sorry. I'll try and be better about that in the future, but my intention is to get to, where is it? Ah, yes. To get to here. As soon as you see the mechanical hound, that is the stopping place. So these four dots are our stopping place for today. So sorry about that. Okay, so back to where we were. Montag. He seeks emergency assistance for his wife, and they do something that is familiar. The rest is ancient. I suppose our ancient practice of pumping the stomach has held along, but not everything else is the same. So this machine, and I really love the figurative language that Ray Bradbury uses to describe this machine. It's not quite personification, but animalification. I don't know what you'd call that, but this machine that sucks the poison and the toxins from your body is like a black cobra drinking up the poisons, feeding, seeing into your soul, maybe. So this machine is far more lifelike in some ways than some of the people in this scene. Montag said he feels like they're digging a trench in his yard when they're saving the life of his wife. Like it's a very impersonal act that doesn't seem to have a lot of emotional significance. We have the operators smoking cigarettes. They're described as impersonal. The way that they speak is just completely detached and disconnected, as if they don't even think Montag should be bothered by what's happening. Yeah, and of course they don't have medical degrees. Why need a medical degree when you have technology that can take over everything? Another thing that we find out that's rather concerning is that these cases occur. Yes, here it is. We get these cases 9 or 10 a night. 9 or 10 suicides a night in what we assume is one city. That's an insane suicide rate. So it doesn't seem like Mildred is the only one who's, popping, or what does he say? It just jumped off the cap of a pillbox. Yeah. So very, very casual, very impersonal, because it has become commonplace. It's not commonplace to Montag. This is probably his first experience with this, but it does seem pretty commonplace to these men. Okay, so he's kind of trying to absorb what's going on. He hears Clarice and her family talking, seems to want to have some companionship and some human connection, but doesn't actually reach out for that. This little bit at the end here, this really interesting kind of fragmentation that Ray Bradbury has going on here to express the way that Montag's mind is right now. I'm sure you've had a day where everything is so chaotic and such absolute madness, and you just sort of like sit there and all the thoughts are rushing through your mind and getting all confused with each other. That's kind of where poor Montag is, thinking about, this encounter with the new neighbor who gave him this really kind of existential question about happiness, thinking about the sleeping tablets that his wife has taken, these impersonal men who treat his wife like a disposable tissue, and there's some rain going on outside, and it's just madness inside poor Montag's mind. So the next morning, Montag has to have a little talk with his wife. You can't really intervene in someone's suicide attempt and not have a conversation with them about it, even in this insane society. So let's see what Mildred says about taking all of her sleeping tablets. At 9 in the morning, Mildred's bed was empty. Montag got up quickly, his heart pumping, and ran down the hall and stopped at the kitchen door. Toast popped out of the silver toaster, was seized by a spidery metal hand that drenched it with melted butter. Mildred watched the toast delivered to her plate. She had both ears plugged with electronic bees that were humming the hour away. She looked up suddenly, saw him, and nodded. "You all right?" he asked. She was an expert at lip reading from 10 years of apprenticeship at Seashell Ear Thimbles. She nodded again. She set the toaster clicking away at another piece of bread. Montag sat down. His wife said, "I don't know why I should be so hungry." I'm hungry. Last night, he began. Didn't sleep well. Fear terrible, she said. God, I'm hungry. Can't figure it. Last night, he said again. She watched his lips casually. What about last night? Don't you remember? What? Did we have a wild party or something? Feel like I have a hangover. God, I'm hungry. Who was here? A few people, he said. That's what I thought. She chewed her toast. Sore stomach, but I'm hungry as all get out. Hope I didn't do anything foolish at the party. No, he said quietly. The toast spidered out a piece of buttered bread for him. He held it in his hand, feeling grateful. You don't look so hot yourself, said his wife. In the late afternoon it rained and the entire world was dark gray. He stood in the hall of his house, putting on his badge with the orange salamander burning across it. He stood looking up at the air conditioning vent in the hall for a long time. His wife in the TV parlor paused long enough from reading her script to glance up. Hey, she said, the man's thinking. Yes, he said, I wanted to talk to you. He paused. You took all the pills in your bottle last night. Oh, I wouldn't do that, she said, surprised. The bottle was empty. I wouldn't do a thing like that. Why would I do a thing like that? She asked. Maybe you took 2 pills and forgot, and took 2 more and forgot again and took 2 more, and were so dopey you kept right on until you had 30 or 40 of them in you. Heck, she said. Why would I want to go and do a silly thing like that for? I don't know, he said. She was quite obviously waiting for him to go. I didn't do that, she said. Never in a billion years. All right, if you say so, he said. That's what the lady said. She turned back to her script. What's on this afternoon? He asked tiredly. She didn't look up from her script again. Well, this is a play. Comes on the wall-to-wall circuit in 10 minutes. They mailed me my part this morning. I sent him some box tops. They write the script with one part missing. It's a new idea. The homemaker, that's me, is the missing part. When it comes time for the missing lines, they all look at me out of the 3 walls and I say the lines. Here, for instance, the man says, what do you think of this whole idea, Helen? And he looks at me, sitting here center stage, see? And I say, she paused and ran her finger under a line in the script, I think that's fine. And then they go on with the play until he says, do you agree to that, Helen? And I say, I sure do. Isn't that fun, Guy? He stood in the hall looking at her. It's sure fun, she said. Well, what's the play about? I just told you. There are these people named Bob and Ruth and Helen. Oh, it's really fun. It'll be even more fun when we can afford to have the 4th wall installed. How long you figure before we save up and get the 4th wall torn out and a 4th wall TV put in? It's only $2,000. That's 1/3 of my yearly pay. It's only $2,000, she replied. And I should think you'd consider me sometimes. If we had a 4th wall, why, it'd be just like this room wasn't ours at all, but all kinds of exotic people's rooms. We could do without a few things. We're already doing without a few things to pay for the 3rd wall. It was put in only 2 months ago, remember? Is that all it was? She sat looking at him for a long moment. Well, goodbye, dear. Goodbye, he said. He stopped and turned around. Does it have a happy ending? I haven't read that far. He walked over, read the last page, nodded, folded the script, and handed it back to her. He walked out of the house into the rain. All right, so pausing there for a sec before we get one more Clarice section here. Montag's interaction with his wife is fascinating in its absolute dysfunction. So when he wakes up and walks out, we see some more technology, automatic melted butter on your toast. Mildred, of course, isn't even actually listening to him when he asks her how she's feeling, if she's doing all right. She still has her seashells, her little AirPods in her ears, and she's relying on lip reading instead. So it doesn't seem like she works anymore, but it seems like she did apprentice at Seashell Ear Thimbles Factory, the AirPod making factory. And her predominant emotional trait this morning after a suicide attempt is hunger, and apparently a complete amnesia. So you can decide whether you believe that Mildred really honestly did forget about everything that she did the previous night, or is she just in crazy amounts of denial? Does she just absolutely reject the decision that she made the previous night? Like I said, you can decide that. She doesn't give us many clues. The conversation about, honey, you tried to kill yourself last night, didn't go very well in the morning. Montag instead seemed to be willing to let her believe that they had a party, and that's why she didn't remember things. He tries again in the afternoon, though. You took all the pills in your bottle last night. Oh, I wouldn't do that. Um, well, you did. I mean, again, it just seems like absolute denial. She doesn't even, address a possibility of what could have happened. She just acts like it didn't happen. I didn't do that. Just complete rejection of reality here. The only thing that she seems to care about in this scene is her television. Now, the televisions in this world were alluded to in the previous section by Clarice. She talked about not watching the parlor walls. Of course, we probably thought that that was a silly description at the time. Of course, who would sit around and watch walls? But now we're beginning to realize that the walls are the television. And in Mildred and Montag's house, she doesn't have just one wall devoted to a television. They have three. And she wants a fourth. So that is an insane amount of technology to immerse yourself in. I mean, you can't even look in four directions at once. I don't even understand the practicalities of how a four-wall television would work. But, I guess I'm just regressive or something. The other thing that she mentions in this section is there's this very innovative idea to try to make you feel even more like you're a part of the television shows by having this play where you're sent the lines and you get to chime in occasionally. All the homemakers around the world get to chime in when it's their turn. This actually was an idea that was pilot tested in the 1950s. It didn't really take off, obviously, but it was meant to make people feel like, you're sort of breaking the fourth wall of the television, and the characters are speaking directly to the people who are sitting there. I think they actually experimented with something like this in an episode of Black Mirror. If you've seen that Netflix show, I did not watch it, but I heard about it. So, anyways, Montag leaves for work. He is on his way back to the firehouse, but he asks a question at the end here that I seriously doubt he would have asked previous to the last night. He says, does it have a happy ending? So we're already seeing the ways that Clarice is starting to affect Montag. And in so many ways, Clarice, even though they are not romantically involved or anything, she seems to be more important in his dynamic character growth than his own wife is. To be fair, though, we don't see a lot of romance between Montag and his wife either. So, Okay, so we are back to Clarice. Montag is on his way to work, and Clarice is going to walk with him for a bit and make him think some more crazy thoughts that he probably hasn't thought in years. The rain was thinning away, and the girl was walking in the center of the sidewalk with her head up and a few drops falling on her face. She smiled when she saw Montag. Hello. He said hello and then said, what are you up to now? I'm still crazy. The rain feels good. I love to walk in it. I don't think I'd like that, he said. You might if you tried. I never have. She licked her lips. Rain even tastes good. What do? Go around trying everything once? He asked. Sometimes twice. She looked at something in her hand. What have you got there? He said. I guess it's the last of the dandelions this year. I didn't think I'd find one on the lawn this late. Have you ever heard of rubbing it under your chin? Look. She touched her chin with the flower, laughing. Why? Well, if it rubs off, it means I'm in love. Has it? He could hardly do anything else but look. Well, she said, you're yellow under there. Fine, let's try you now. It won't work for me. Here. Before he could move, she had put the dandelion under his chin. He drew back, and she laughed. Hold still. She peered under his chin and frowned. Well, he said. What a shame, she said. You're not in love with anyone. Yes, I am. Doesn't show. I am very much in love. He tried to conjure up a face to fit the words, but there was no face. I am. Oh, please don't look that way. It's that dandelion, he said. You've used it all up on yourself. That's why it won't work for me. Of course, that must be it. Oh, now I've upset you. I can see I have. I'm sorry. Really, I am. She touched his elbow. No, he said quickly. I'm all right. I've got to be going, so say you forgive me. I don't want you angry with me. I'm not angry. Upset, yes. I've got to go see my psychiatrist now. They make me go. I made up things to say. I don't know what he thinks of me. He says I'm a regular onion. I keep him busy peeling away the layers. I'm inclined to believe you need the psychiatrist, said Montag. You don't mean that. He took a breath and let it out, and at last said, No, I don't mean that. The psychiatrist wants to know why I go out and hike around in the forests and watch the birds and collect butterflies. I'll show you my collection someday. Good. They want to know what I do with all my time. I tell them that sometimes I just sit and think. But I won't tell them what. I've got them running. And sometimes I tell them I like to put my head back like this and let the rain fall into my mouth. It tastes just like wine. Have you ever tried it? No, You have forgiven me, haven't you? Yes. He thought about it. Yes, I have. God knows why. You're peculiar. You're aggravating, yet you're easy to forgive. You say you're 17? Well, next month. How odd. How strange. And my wife, 30, and yet you seem so much older at times. I can't get over it. You're peculiar yourself, Mr. Montag. Sometimes I even forget you're a fireman. Now, may I make you angry again? Go ahead. How did it start? How did you get into it? How did you pick your work, and how did you happen to think to take the job you have? You're not like the others. I've seen a few. I know. When I talk, you look at me. When I said something about the moon, you looked at the moon last night. The others would never do that. The others would walk off and leave me talking, or threaten me. No one has time anymore for anyone else. You're one of the few people who put up with me. That's why I think it's so strange you're a fireman. It just doesn't seem right for you somehow. He felt his body divide itself into a hotness and a coldness, a softness and a hardness, a trembling and a not trembling, the two halves grinding one upon the other. You'd better run on to your appointment, he said. And she ran off and left him standing there in the rain. Only after a long time did he move. And then, very slowly, as he walked, he tilted his head back in the rain for just a few moments and opened his mouth. All right. So again, Clarice having an effect. So this is where we'll stop for today. But just want to mention a few more things about Clarice and Montag's conversation. So first thing that we have is the dandelion. So the dandelion is a silly kind of schoolyard game. Sorry about the noise in the background. I'm trying to move now. And what Clarice says happens is that when you rub the dandelion under your chin, it shows that you're in love. Now, for Montag, the dandelion, which of course has a very finite amount of pollen on it, doesn't work for him. So instead of saying, oh, whatever, it's a stupid flower, it doesn't tell me how I feel, Montag gets very upset. So he says, I am very much in love, stupid flower's broken, and gets very indignant about what has happened. So if Montag were in a secure relationship where they truly did love each other wholeheartedly and, were really committed and valued each other, I find it highly unlikely that he would get so worked up about the dandelion incident. So probably indicative of larger problems in his and Mildred's relationship for sure. Okay. Other things, let's see. There's something else I was going to mention. Can't think of it now. Okay, well, point being, Clarice has to see a psychiatrist. So she hasn't been shipped off to a mental institution just yet. But again, her ideas about the world, her curiosity and obsession with thinking and connecting with humans definitely would be considered strange in this society. So though she seems perfectly happy, for whatever reason, she has been referred to a psychiatrist for mental treatment. Again, another indication of disapproval of regressive attitudes in this society. Okay, cool. So we will get to see Montag's work, and we will get to meet the mechanical hound, the firehouse puppy dog, tomorrow in Friday's video.